That was a hell of a GP to come back to after a very long summer break. The Dutch GP, yet again, delivered and without rain. I told you guys before this race, I had a feeling it was going to be an insane one, and it really was. I mean, from everything that happened, the podium finish, the disaster for Ferrari, the retirement for Lando, I gotta discuss it all. It's so much to cover in one video of this whole Dutch GP, but let's talk about it. Let's review it. It was very entertaining to watch. It wasn't the most overtakes. The overtakes that did happen were very fun to watch, but man, what happened in the GP is what made it so entertaining. Oh, but we did get one of the best overtakes in like the past 10 years. I will say that. So make sure if you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe. Wouldn't mean the world. Let's get this video started and talking about the Dutch GP in 2025. I mean, the starting grid wasn't anything crazy. McLaren, yet again, 1-2. We did have the surprise of Hadjar. I mean, wow. What a way to come back. This guy as a rookie was the most, not cared for joining the grid out of D5 that we had between Hadjar, Bortoleto, Antonelli. Let's even throw in Colapinto was probably looked at a bit more than Hadjar. And even Ollie Behrman. All the rookies, everybody looked at differently except for Hadjar. They kind of just threw him under the bus, didn't really care. And out of the four that have stayed, Kimi is probably doing the worst. I gotta say, we'll definitely talk about him. That move was horrible to watch. But congrats to Hadjar. I will mention him again in the video. Fourth in qualifying, and he does a damn good job in the race. Now, it was interesting to see that a couple of drivers decided to go for the softs, particularly the Red Bull drivers, and I think Colapinto ended up starting on the softs as well. Now, we've seen this be a viable strategy at the Dutch GP before because of the grip that it gives you. It's not a track that has a lot of overtakes. It's very difficult to make them. It's all about grip and how much tire differential you actually have. And then Max pulled off such a ballsy move. I mean, you can hate the guy, but you gotta love when he's driving. If it's not against your favorite driver, it's just entertainment the full way through. He's the only driver that would go for a move like this on lap 1, going pretty much into the sand pit and sliding all over the place, making it stick on these orange rocket ships. I mean, it was phenomenal. I gotta give him props. This and Imola, I mean, he's given us entertainment in a car that's not even close to these cars. Now, yes, that overtake happened, but then Lando pulled off a good move as well. It did kind of seem like Max wasn't fighting it as hard as he usually does, but I mean, it was going to happen at some point no matter what. I do think this was a good move by Lando, and then the pace increased. We saw the 1-2 get a lot closer. Lando usually having the race pace over Oscar, but Oscar, cool, calm, and collected, kept that lead. And at this time, we didn't know if the rain was going to come or not. We ended up getting a lot of light rain. Of course, you had the hands being put out to check whether or not there was actually some raindrops happening. And there was never really a threat to put on intermediates unless you wanted to be insane and go for it. And as I said, in this time, Norris and Piastri were pretty close to around 3 seconds. Lando was sitting around that gap, but Piastri was maintaining it and holding a strong lead. And the cars that were on the softs were trying to stay out, even the hards, trying to mix the strategy, and then doesn't go great for Lewis Hamilton. He hits into the barrier, has an oversteer moment, cannot turn the car when he was that high up on the banking, ends up going into the barrier. Very unfortunate. I think it was actually a pretty decent start to his weekend. He was okay in qualifying, but in the race, he was keeping up with George before even the damage between him and Leclerc. I thought that was good, and then he ends up doing this. It was not great after a very long time to reevaluate and get himself back into the car. He seems a lot more cool and calm, but not a good way to go out for Lewis. He was the first of really the retirements or DNFs, however you'd like to call it, crashing into the wall. Now this opened up obviously a safety car to come out. The strategy ended up getting revised for a lot of teams. Fernando himself was livid seeing the safety car come out because he pitted earlier.
It's a safety car said get Delta positive.
Lance Stroll also pitted extremely early. The guy went from P20 to into the points. I don't know how this guy manages to just make up so many positions and have a lot of luck come his way. It also requires very consistent driving. Don't get me wrong. I want to give my props to Lance, but it's crazy how many times this year and really even in the past years, he goes from such a low position to high up in the race and actually finishing in the points. Because he crashed in practice and qualifying. It wasn't a good weekend. He had the pace all weekend, but just kept crashing, and then in the race, trickiest of conditions, he does good. We end up getting contact between Lawson and Sainz, and I don't know what the FI was thinking. Why did Sainz get a 10-second penalty for this? He was on the left side of him. It clearly looked like Liam either understeered or had an oversteer moment where he had to catch the car, resulting damage with Sainz, taking Sainz out of the race pretty much, and himself, because they both had punctures, had to end up going into the pit lane, replacing those tires, and they were just out of it. They were lapped down the whole GP. Now, what was the reason that the FIA thought Sainz should get the 10-second penalty and not Liam, or just call it a racing incident and not have anybody take a penalty? I could not believe the decision that was made, but yet again, it is the FIA we're talking about. Then shortly after that, I mean, it was entertainment every 5 laps pretty much. I gotta say, between maybe like 7 to 20, that was a little boring, but that's about it. I mean, we get that every single GP. This was as entertaining as it can get. That's when we got a beautiful Charles Leclerc overtake. I thought it was correctly done. There should have been no penalty installed. It was just racing between the two. George closed the window completely, even with Charles being on the side. It's a very narrow track. He went for it. He was very close. He wasn't even trying to go off track to overtake him. He was trying to make the space there. It was a great overtake. That's my opinion on it. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. I think most people are in agreement that this was a great overtake by Charles, and George closed the window a little too early, but I'd love to hear what you guys say. Now, we did have this middle stint where Fernando Alonso was making up a lot of overtakes in the back. It was usually the people that were trying to undercut that were making the overtakes. This was the more boring section, so I guess there was a little bit boring sessions, but we were always looking at the gaps between Piastri and Lando. There was something to always look at. Kimi was actually doing a pretty good job because George had the damage from Leclerc. Albon had himself up. Hadjar had himself up. I mean, there were a lot of drivers to look out for and be quite impressed with. Gasly is also a very underrated drive. That's got to be mentioned as well. It's just unfortunate how it ended up happening to him at the very end there. Colapinto did okay. And with there being a lot of good drives means there's also a lot of bad drives. And then that's when we ended up getting the drama around lap 50 with Leclerc and Antonelli. And I gotta say, I'm quite disappointed with Kimi so far in the season. I thought after that insane Australia, we would get a completely different type of driver as his rookie season. But this is as rookie as it gets. Reminds me a lot of Mick Schumacher in that 2021 Haas year. And yes, he was driving a very bad car. He's in a much better car, so these incidents that end up happening are much more glorified, and we see them much more than it was with Mick, who was crashing constantly. But this was such a bad error and like a berserk move to make. There was no reason for him to even try and attempt this. I get he wanted to go for the overtake, and this might have been his only attempt, but then leave the space, be smart about it. Don't just go straight into the sidewall of Leclerc, who was having a good GP considering the car seemed very rocky. I would probably say this is one of Antonelli's big lows of the year. He ended up getting a 10-second penalty. Even with him finishing, I think it was P6, it ended up putting him back to like 14 or 15 because of the couple of safety cars that came out. Well deserved. I don't think he should have finished in the points considering this incident. Without this incident, this would have been one of his best GPs of the year. It would have been a perfect way to come back, and all because of one mistake that he made. Just ends up ruining his race, and everybody looks at it completely differently now. As I said, I think he's disappointed me the most overall the rookies. Behrman's had his highs, but even when he has his lows, it doesn't result in a lot of crashes, except for Australia. Hadjar, mostly highs. Bortoleto, mostly highs. Liam is back in it as well, and then I don't really have to mention too much of Jack and Franco. We don't expect much of them either. So this brings out yet again another safety car, but it's Piastri, Lando, and Max. Max on the softs, and these guys ended up taking hards towards the end. Alonso also towards the back had a hard strategy that was trying to work out. Gasly was trying to stick on. Yuki had a throttle issue as well. It was all mixed up towards the back, but that's what made it even more entertaining. Albon was high up. George was somehow sticking it around even with a damaged car. And you can say all that you want, but this guy is always in the top 5. George is phenomenal. It's really been an insane year for him. We got quite the amusing pictures when Leclerc was out sitting on top of the hill watching the GP happen. At some point, he had a phone that he was watching off as well to hear the audio. That was pretty funny as well. And the gap was about a second, with Lando following closely behind Oscar Piastri. And my thought process as to why he ended up having an engine issue towards the end of the race is because he was following in that hot air pretty much the whole time. I think that could possibly be an issue. They did say it was something to do with the oil pressure. So smoke starts coming out of his car and he ends up getting out of the race, retirement. Huge for Lando, very reminiscent of that of 2016 Lewis Hamilton in Malaysia. It sucks. It really does, because I don't want to see a championship end like this, but considering he's always been a step behind. He's better in the race by a little bit, but Oscar ends up staying ahead, and with his dirty air, there's not really much of an opportunity that Lando can make. That's to his own fault, because Oscar beat him on a track that I thought Lando should have had him easily. But he's worked clearly harder this year. Oscar stayed ahead, kept him behind. Unfortunately, Lando gets the DNF, and now it's about a 30-point gap. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. It's going to be very hard for Lando to come back. We have about 9 GPs, I think, left. For him to be able to do it, there are a couple more sprints as well, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough for Lando to actually win the championship this year. Now it's became infinitely much more harder. And it is heartbreak. It sucks to see this happen to him because it's just out of his hands. It's unlucky, to say the least. But with Lando falling out, the good thing out of this was Isack Hadjar was in the top 3. Insane. He stayed P4 the whole race, was always behind Max, barely lost any pace throughout the whole GP. And George with the damage I didn't think was catching him. He just had to finish the race. Now there were overtakes happening in the back, but of course, the biggest thing out of this is Isack Hadjar finishing on the podium. Well done to the guy. Unbelievable. I cannot even believe to think that Isack Hadjar and Nico Hülkenberg have a podium before Lewis Hamilton and a couple of other drivers that probably should have had it. In the season, a Sauber car and a Racing Bulls car have it over a Ferrari. It's insane. Well done to both of them, but to Hadjar in particular in this race, very nice to see him go to the crowd over there at the end, that Racing Bulls team. Celebrate. It was an amazing GP to come back to. And of course, congrats to Piastri. It's not a race many people are going to look at and be like, oh, Piastri ends up winning it because of Lando DNFing. He did a phenomenal job. I think it has to be pointed out that he did exactly what was asked of him. He kept the gap. Lando never ended up getting into DRS range at all. And pretty much a perfectly executed race. To me, this is a 10 out of 10 for Oscar. And for Max, who finished second in a Red Bull car that at some point during those practice sessions wasn't even in the top 10. So Max being Max, Yuki scored points, the Aston Martin scored points. I want to make sure I mention that because Yuki did a good job. He had a throttle issue towards the end. Yeah, qualifying wasn't great, but in the race, he was controlled, nothing bad. It was a good race for Yuki and in the points after a very long period of time. So got to commend that. I do also think the Haas team's double points as well because of Kimi falling out of the points because of that 10-second pen. Fun GP. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure you check out the Unchained race week. See where you finished after this top 5. I doubt many people did very good. I know I didn't, but please make sure you check it out. Thank you guys for the support. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world. And peace.